Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I am talking to Gordie Tentrees. If you've ever seen him perform live, there's a good chance he was sharing the stage and the spotlight with Jaxon Haldane. The Whitehorse troubadour and the Winnipeg MVP have played more than 1,100 shows together in over a decade. But now, they've finally taken their partnership into the studio with their new collaborative album, Double Takes. Recorded in Nashville with an all-star cast, including harmonica legend Charlie McCoy, fiddler Tania Elizabeth, and producer Nash Chambers, it showcases Gordie and Jaxon's complementary styles and easygoing camaraderie. With double takes available now, Gordie zoomed in from his Whitehorse digs to talk about what took them so long, tracking down the real McCoy, what boxing and music have in common, and plenty more. Enjoy. How's life today are you in Whitehorse?
I'm in Whitehorse. Well, we're enjoying summer. We only get it for about a week sometimes, so it looks like
Yeah.
we've got it. And we're 3 days in, and it's 25 to 30 degrees, which is rare for us. And we're all learning how to function. Most of us don't get to wear t-shirts most of the year, so it's we're all showing off our very white body parts. And
Yes, I've never been there in the brief window of summer. I was there once in the winter for Western Canadian Music Awards. We're up there like 15 years ago or something, and I was there for
which was
that.
amazing. That was amazing to have it here.
Yeah, I believe I saw you there. You played, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
amazing. It was probably my favorite one that of all those things I've ever gone to be honest.
sure. You got to
Yeah,
sleep in your own bed at night.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about your new album with Jaxon, my fellow Winnipegger, Jaxon Haldane, Double Takes. Um, the first thing that struck me was that you guys have worked together now for more than a decade off and on. You did the live album back in 2018, but this is the first time you've actually sort of done the whole thing together in a studio the way you're doing this. What How did this come about, and what took you so long to kind of, get around to this point?
Um, it was it was a one-off idea of like in my mind of what to do next. And I was thinking I always have these ideas that percolate, and I kept thinking, um, we should go into the studio and make a record. And I felt like it'd be neat to showcase some of Jackson's songs as well as my own and put them together. And
Hmm.
then, wouldn't it be neat to pick a producer that both of us admire and have always wanted to work with, and then show up with each of us showing up with songs and throw them at this producer and see what happens. So it was
Hmm.
totally just an idea and then we wrote a bunch of different producers that we always admired who made other records that we really liked, and talked to them all about timelines and their interests and ideas and stuff like that, and then settled on Nash Chambers.
Right.
That's how it kind of started, really organically, and one conversation, one idea after another of like, hey, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this would be a really neat idea if we went and made something somewhere else and just with a stranger who didn't know us at all, because I'd made
Yeah.
records with a lot of the same sort of people involved in the record, even though
Right.
Jaxon had played on my last studio record and we'd made a live record together. I thought, let's just try to do something different. You're always thinking about trying to do something different and kind of changing things up and to
Mhm.
keep the blood flowing. And so,
Did you ever think about sitting down and writing 10 songs together?
yeah, that I've thought about doing that before. That's a hard thing to do. That's not a hard thing to do if we had that intention of doing it. I'm not sure if both of us really wanted to be sort of stuck, put ourselves in the mold where we're just Gordie and Jaxon and that's all we do, because we both do different things and then we
Sure.
get together and play. And so to me, it always seemed like a one-off kind of project.
Mhm.
I was more of thinking we play on each other's songs and then let the producer handle the reins of what that looks like, which was neat to
Mhm.
do. So we had selected somebody who had made some duo records that I really admired. He had made some records with his sister Casey Chambers and Shane Nicholson.
Right.
that I listen to quite often, and I always thought, man, this guy gets really cool sounds, and so it was just kind of led towards that. I think it's not impossible for Jaxon and I to get together and write 10 songs. That's something we could do if we put our energy into that. Um,
Do you think
I
it would?
had,
Do you think it would change your relationship? I mean, because it's playing together is one thing, obviously,
yeah.
but sitting down and writing together is more of a mind meld. And I think you guys have complementary styles, but kind of different styles, you know?
Hmm. I don't know if like we've written some songs together on our live record that we made,
Hmm.
and it's not. It depends. We have two different styles in a way. We've also changed a lot since we did that, so it might have been different. It's something maybe that will happen. You never know. There's
Hmm.
all kinds of
Hmm.
time in this world. Well, not all kinds of time, but
Well, we're all getting up there,
there's
my friend.
there's that's not impossible to do.
Yeah,
Besides touring, I do a lot of songwriting with my job that I have off the
right,
stage here at home, writing
right,
songs. I work as part of a healing team, a land-based indigenous-led healing team, writing healing songs with families. And that has really worked my muscles in different ways and created, I think, a broader kind of writer than I've been before, but also taken a lot of energy.
right.
Once you write songs every day, 3 days a week, I was doing that for 5 years now.
Wow,
Um, with other people written,
right,
I think we're at 70 songs now that we've written together. And that's taken a lot of my um, my writing muscles, use them, and then they're kind of
sure.
depleted them. And
Mm.
then I've had these other songs that I've done. So as far as writing songs myself in the last 3 years, the output's been kind of low as far as, so I thought, well, I have 5 songs I really like that we've practiced live or played live for, a year or two. So we had them kind of worked
Right.
out live, most of them. The only one we hadn't done ever played before was called Tinkering, and this
Oh,
record,
okay.
which was fun to do. The other ones we had all kind of played live before and tested them on the road and really liked them, and they kind of fitted. Um, the songs that Jaxon offered to the album were songs that I felt I could play on live if we would decide to do that.
Hmm.
They were all fairly friendly for me to play harmonica and guitar on. He's more of a musician than I am. I'm more of a barker slash songwriter, and he's got the talent. So
All right.
together it works. It does work in a great way. I think playing live, people seem to enjoy it, and no one's
Right.
throwing stuff at us. So it's
Yeah,
just kind of
you're obviously being humble with the he's got the talent stuff, which, but I know that you were kind of a late bloomer when it comes to this music stuff, right?
very,
Yeah, I mean,
very.
so do you feel a little more, I don't know, intimidated or imposter syndrome-y when you're in situations like this where you're dealing with guys who have been, kind of doing it their entire lives?
Yeah, you can feel like that, but I find I've always surrounded myself with people better than me,
Sure.
and it helps me learn.
Raises the
And
game.
yeah, and if you're
Yeah.
willing to learn, I find that in the studio experience, he can clearly play a lot of instruments. I'm not as comfortable. I can play too. So for me, we had to, clearly he could play on everything and play 3 instruments on every song. And we've done that before. We do that in our live show. This record was an opportunity. Both of us were quite intimidated by the rhythm section when we went in to play, because not intimidated, but in awe of these
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
that sat down. We all 10 songs were bed tracked in about 7 hours,
Yes.
amongst a bunch of grizzly bear stories in the studio. They wanted the grizzly bear stories, and we didn't know. I didn't know who the drummer and bass player were till the producer. I hadn't met him in person, only on over the internet, until he showed up at our doorstep in our Airbnb and said, "Are you guys the Canadians?" And we all laughed and jumped in the car, and then we are on our way to the studio. And then we got there and met 2 other fellows that were clearly ready to go. And the first song was tracked at 9:38 in the morning, and in East
Nice
Nashville.
time for rock and roll. Yeah.
And I thought, this is unbelievable. And these guys were so pro. Basically, they just listened to our songs as we played them with our instruments in our hands, and said, give us suggestions on the spot for songs we've been playing live. And we clearly sang them and knew all the words to them.
Right.
And they were so quick and so fast. And they would do one take, and then they would go, Can you go back to the 17th bar on the second note? I'd like to punch in that note. I can hear my skin scraping the pick too much on that one note. And
Wow.
Jackson and I were like, what the? And we went back and punched it in. Okay, done. Next song. And we're both looking at each other like, is this really happening like this? So it was really just kind of like, boom, let's magic. Let's see what we can do. And at the end of that day, we both realized we were in another world altogether. And
Right.
Nash said to us, do you have any guests you want to play on the record? And we both said, well, we don't have any friends, really. We had hoped we were going to play on all of it ourselves and just have a rhythm section and you do what you do. And he's like, well, you live in, we are in Nashville. We're making, look around you, the neighbor over here. Every instrument is within a block of my studio here. But maybe there's some special people you've always wanted to ask to play. And you can ask them. That's what they do. They're home.
Yeah.
They're off tour and they're home. And we thought, okay, so that's what we started to do. And we got all these guests on the record, which was really great.
Well, yeah, you've got, let's start with some of those. You got Charlie McCoy on here. That's pretty legendary. I mean, the guy's played with Elvis and Roy Orbison and a laundry list of people.
Yeah, that was it's great to be Canadian and naive and not know, you know what I mean? And not know that you're not supposed to be able, like I messaged him on Facebook within an hour of coming up with this idea to ask special guests. And I thought to myself, I know Charlie, I'm a huge fan of Charlie McCoy for all kinds of reasons. And on myself, since I started playing music, he lives here. And I found him and I said, hey, I don't know if you're the real Charlie McCoy. And
The real McCoy, yeah.
the real McCoy, and still blowing the prison whistle, but we're from Canada. We're making a record in your town. And if you still do sessions, we'd love to hear you on our record. Let us know. And then he literally got back to me within a minute and said, do you live near Kelowna? I have a good friend near Kelowna, and I have fond memories of playing in bands with the Calgary Stampede, and different things I've been dragged to Canada to do. And I've always wanted to go to the Yukon, and started talking to me about the Yukon.
Well, there you go.
Right?
It's done.
And it was all about that. He was more
Yeah.
interested in like where I was from and whatever. And he said, absolutely, I'll come over and play harmonica. And I thought, okay, great. We got Charlie McCoy. And I went and told Jaxon and Nash, Charlie's in, and they were like, what? And I go, yeah, he's in. And I showed them the message and they said, are you sure that's the real Charlie McCoy? Can you check his profile, his Facebook profile? And I checked it, and there was him playing harmonica to a horse and getting inducted into the Opry and all these things. And I thought, I think it's the same guy. And then he wrote back and said, there's a really great sandwich shop right where you guys are. I'd like to meet you for lunch beforehand. How does that sound? And I said, sure. And I didn't know how old he was. I didn't know if he could come on his own. And I said, I'd drive you over if you want to be picked up and stuff. And he's like, no. And anyways, we had some conversations and it worked out. But he showed up the day after we left. We didn't get to meet him in person, which was too bad. We showed up the day after we left. And just as soon as they started the session, the power went out on the whole street.
Oh, wow.
And Nash said, Jesus, I'm sorry, and Nash was excited too. He said to me, this is the Sir Charles McCoy. This is the real deal. And I said, I think we're going to find out. But I wasn't there to find out. But the power went out, and he was so gracious. He said, oh, looks like we'll have to do it tomorrow. I'll come back. And he did.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing when you deal with that in that world. I mean, I've had enough experience or enough luck to talk to some of those guys, and they're all just working musicians like you. You know what I mean? They're just guys who love to play music, and it's a gig, and they make a connection, meet somebody new. It's funny, we put them on these pedestals, but
yeah, they go to the bathroom too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You think they're unreal, and then. When Nash sent us video of him he played on one of my songs and one of Jackson's tunes, I was just like, this is unreal. And then it makes your blood flow like, whoa, who else is in town,
Right. Yeah.
And so hence we kept moving in that direction, but it was so fun to do that. Yeah, it was really neat.
So do you talking about learning things, I mean, did you walk away from this with sort of something that you can apply going forward in terms of songwriting or making albums or?
Absolutely. Yeah, I learned lots of things I didn't know. going, into it. You have an idea what you want to do, and then it changes, and then you're like, okay, and I feel like I was trying to get away from doing things I'd done in the past. Having
Hmm.
already made 8 records, I was like, I want to do something totally, even if it's risky. So that
Hmm.
was really my idea, was to like, let's see what develops here. And it's not always easy to do that. It wasn't easy for um me to do that. It wasn't easy for Jaxon to do that. It wasn't easy for Nash to do that. And we all came together in a really great way. And it was really, really great guys to work with,
Hmm.
incredible human beings. I can't think of two nicer people to do something with. So it was really cool to, that's the thing, right? A lot of the people I've learned that if you surround yourself with good musicians who are also good people,
Yeah.
then
That's the trick, isn't it, though? I mean, and sometimes
yeah,
that second part is more important than the first part. I mean, I've talked to so many people who say, I can find 100 guitar players who are great to play with, but you got to find somebody who you can spend 2 weeks in a van with, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I was, I knew Jaxon quite well, right? So I knew what I was
sure.
getting into him. I knew whatever happened, we would be able to figure it out. At the end of the day, we whatever areas that were, we were banging our heads against each other, or with, or together, or
Hmm.
against, or whatever, we'd figure it out. I had that in my back pocket, which was great. I didn't know Nash, so I didn't know, maybe he's
Right.
you don't know, right?
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
ended, and he's a world-class human being. So I was
that's
like,
important. Yeah.
wow, what a great experience to meet someone like that, who's so easygoing, so
Hmm.
laid back, who knows what they're doing, who's so chill, knows how to get it done, works so efficiently, and makes great sounds. And it's clearly, I think it's a great sounding record because of
Oh
that.
yeah, definitely. I like it. I mean, it's considering how quickly it was put together and not almost sounds like it was done on the fly from the way you're talking about it and the fact of, just bang, bang, banging out these tunes. It all has a cohesion. It all fits together. It doesn't sound like something done very quickly. On the musical level, what is it about Jaxon that makes him such a good partner for you? Is it just that you guys don't have to talk about things when you play, that it just sort of, you're of the same mind, or what?
Well, I think playing live, he's the only person I've played with who has the same kind of energy.
Mm,
Usually in my past experiences, where you're the front man or the person leading the charge, you have to carry your band with you, or
right.
the people with you. You're kind of leading the way. With him, right from day one, he had the same energy. Because he was a front man for the D Rangers, and
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah.
So he has energy, high energy, and he loves playing,
That
and
he
he's
does.
fearless. So, and I feel fearless too, and so when I'm on stage. And so having him, the two of us together, right away, I knew, like, oh, this is something totally different than I'd experienced before, because we're bringing it. It doesn't matter if there's 5 people or 500. That's just a great thing to have, and I always really secretly wanted that, because I'm kind of like, come on, guys, let's get excited to play music. And
Uh-huh.
it's not always the case, right?
So he's the John Oates to your Daryl Hall, is what you're telling me.
Pretty much for me, anyways. Maybe for him, he's
He's even
like,
got the mustache.
yeah, and maybe for him, he might be like, not feel the same way. He might feel something differently about it. He might
Sure.
appreciate the fact that he can open the shows and play with me, and doesn't have to worry about the music business as much, or whatever
Mhm.
is the music business these days.
Right. Well, he's got his own thing, like you say.
Yeah.
I noticed that on the album, I mean, most of his songs are in the front half, and most of your songs are in the back half, and I'm wondering what that says about the power dynamic in your relationship.
Well, I just kind of listened to the grooves. I started with
Mhm.
listening to the songs. I think I would have. I don't think that. I think I would have switched them up a bit more. Looking back, you make a record and you think, oh, okay, that's good. And then 2 months later, you're like, oh, damn, I wish I would have
Sure.
done this. So I wish I would have changed some songs around for sure, having listened to them. But honestly, I felt like all those songs you could have put inside of a hat and just
Right.
dropped them all out and picked any order.
Yeah.
Because I went through, I in my mind, I'm just the guy who thinks so far ahead as far as seeing a vision and going, okay, these songs, you could put them in any way and I wouldn't be
Yeah,
disappointed,
yeah. I
you
mean, the
know?
sequencing to me is always kind of a mystery. I mean, I get the concept of, I mean, you're old enough, I'm old enough to remember LPs.
Yeah.
And I totally get the concept of great opening track on, right up front, you got to have that. And then people put the closing ballad on the album and all that. But there's so many albums where I listen to something and I go, I have no idea how you get from 1 to 10 or whatever. Is
Yeah.
sequencing, is that something you spend a lot of time going back and forth
I
and
do
moving the
because
cards around?
I do because I'm an older guy who,
Hmm.
from an older time
Right,
even though I started late, I still appreciate a whole record.
right,
And now, like even Nash was saying, it doesn't matter what order you put them in. They're all, whether they're streamed or they're
right. They're
whatever
all singles
people
eventually,
listen to them,
right?
they're all
Yeah.
singles. They're all gonna listen to whatever part they might hear the last song first over and over again.
Hmm.
We can have fun doing this. And for
Right,
Nash, he wanted to. Um, I feel like he really wanted to be a part of that because because he produced the record, too,
right.
because he was making this thing, creating this art. So I feel like that was something that I was good with any song that was first or last. I was quite happy with them all.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, you had the luxury too of having played a lot of these songs before they were familiar to you. I mean, talking
Oh
about the notion of you coming off the thing and going, oh, I would have sequenced it differently. There are so many artists who you make an album, and I'm sure maybe this has happened to you. You make an album and then you go out and you tour those songs, and that's when you sort of really discover, oh, you know what? It's better if I do it this way, and I wish we could have recorded it that way.
yeah, there'll be things I wish I could have done differently, like I do every record.
Yeah,
That happens, and it's what happens in the process. And when you involve other people, you just have to go with it.
yeah,
You have to take into account what their interests are or disinterests are, and work together. So that's always like even when I would be the primary songwriter or the guy, the artist. Whenever have a road band or a band on any record that played on the record or studio musicians, I kind of like, um, other than having something to offer, I want everybody to get involved and do their own thing and create
mm,
magic and piece of art. So that, that's what makes the record special, I think, is that when you do
right,
that, empower everybody to throw ideas in and feel like that's part of the process. Back to kind of what Jaxon offers, um, to me, is the ability to not only be a multi instrumentalist, but he's also a producer himself, produced records, and an engineer, and has great ears and ideas, and is creative. So that's a that's all kinds of things there that can show up that are really super helpful. Like I said, if
yeah.
you surround yourself with helpful people that have lots to offer you, and his ability to support the song when he's a side guy playing my songs is incredible. I think, as far as knowing what would bring up the emotion in the song and how to support the lyrics and all those things.
Right. And you guys just did a West Coast run, right, for this album.
Hmm.
How did that go? I was looking at your schedule, and you guys did like I think about 3 weeks with only 3 days off. That is a pretty grinding tour schedule.
It was. We actually postponed all our U.S. dates
Oh,
um,
really?
a
Oh,
month
okay.
before the tour, which was, uh, happened. Not probably the worst business decision I've ever made, as far as being an independent musician. It was a disaster that way, but just didn't
Uh,
feel right to go down there.
I didn't know
And
that. Hmm.
you will go down there again at some point. And some of those tour shows have been booked for 3 years, so that was really tough to pull the plug on that so close to a tour. It was like pulling it 5 minutes before stepping on the stage.
Oh, no
So
kidding.
not the greatest thing I've ever been a part of, for sure. But my I think my relationship with all, as well as being the artist that or the musician or the songwriter, I'm also the agent uh these days, and I have been for a
Mhm.
while, and I've really enjoyed putting that hat on. So I really enjoy that. It's like playing Tetris.
Is
That
that just necessity for you in terms of?
No, you could there's agents that I've had
Mm,
in every market that I tour in, that I have great relationships with, that I still talk to.
Hmm.
That if I'm stuck for a show or they're stuck for a show, I can lean on
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
And I just found that I would, whenever I worked with an agent in the past, they would put a tour together and there'd be 4 open dates, and I'd say, "Well, we have to play 20 nights in a row. We can't have 4 days off. That's ridiculous." So I would just book I'd end up booking 2 shows on those per day on those days off,
Mm.
and the agent would often go, "Oh my god, where did you find those shows?" And that's crazy. And I'm like, "Well, if I'm leaving my house, I wanna play 3 times a day. I live
Right.
far away, and I really wanna play as much as I can." So that mentality along with, a total DUI, you know, DYI
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, well, now we're getting into another area,
getting into
sir.
another yeah, as well as drinking, and driving. That's something I really enjoy as well. So it was unfortunate to postpone them, but we'll be back, or I'll be
Okay.
back. We'll get to go back there again. Yeah.
I mean, the only other, it's funny, I come across this a lot more in country music than in rock and roll, where people do schedules like yours. I mean, I remember talking to, I think it was Willie Nelson many years ago, and he was doing one of those tours. At this time, he was only in his 80s, and he was doing some crazy tour that was, they were out for 3 months and they were playing 89 out of 90 days or something like that. And he said, "Well, I'm out. I want to work. I'm not out there for fun." But in rock and roll, you see these tour things where it's like 3 days on, 3 days off, yada yada yada. It's you country guys, you roots guys, you Americana guys. You're all hardworking bastards.
Yeah, I don't know, or that mentality. That's the only, my early examples of that road that was well, Fred Eaglesmith was probably the first
Well,
person that
yeah.
kind of
Well, talking about a
influenced.
road dog, yeah.
Yeah, I met him when I was 15 years old, and I've spent some time on tour with him, and he was
Sure.
gracious enough to take me on the road a number of times, and I consider him a friend. And his example of doing that, playing for $500 a night in every town you could possibly play in, and making your own thing for you that's specific to you,
Right.
creating your own business so that you can sustain yourself. And right from the beginning, he would tell me, "There is no music business. This thing is dead. You're coming into it when it's dead." He already knew what was going to happen that's happening right now, well before it happened.
Right.
And so lots of he was really great at, that's all I knew. He was the only example I had. And I really loved his music and his songwriting. And as we became friends, he was really helpful in going, do this all yourself. The less hands in your pocket, the better. And
Makes
so
sense. Yeah.
I
Good
would be
advice.
I'd be on tour with him, and I'd see him with his headset on, driving his bus, talking to every agent in every market, and really putting them to work.
Right.
And I learned lots of neat things from him. So things that I still hold dear to me today.
I know you've played like thousands of shows. Do you know exactly how many shows you've played? Or is it kind of
I'm going to say,
somewhere in this range?
yeah, it's probably safe to say, I think about, like with Jackson, we've done 1,200 shows in the last 10 years, right?
Uh,
So,
uh,
and he's also played solo shows, and so have I in between
sure.
that. And then 8 years before that, or before that, I was out with a trio for 4 years, and before that, I was out with another trio for 8 years. So, I don't know if I to make a or to be a rough a guess would be 5,000, I would say. When I think about
That
it
is
all,
crazy.
if you think about 200 dates a year for, 20 years, it's quick to yeah, I'm gonna to me, it seems like that. It's definitely around there for sure.
It's too
Yeah.
bad you don't have a solid number. Like Frank Turner, counts every show, right? And he does those anniversary things. Like if you knew, you could have or
I
you
could
could
go
just pick
back.
a show,
Yeah, I could go back and find out. And with
Yeah.
Jackson and I went back one time to find out, for I can't remember what the reason was, to find out how many shows have we played together. I was putting something together, maybe a bio or something.
Mm.
And I remember going, "Oh my God, we've played 767 shows together." And then I started counting, and I thought it
Yeah.
was funny to say at the end of the show to say, "Hey, for the 979th time, uh, this fella's
That
been
is
playing
good.
with me, and let's give him a hand." Because that is as you just said earlier, to being able to hang out with someone off the stage is way more important than being able to play any kind of music with them on the stage.
Yeah.
Um, After a while of doing this, so I'm grateful that I was able to, I'm able to do that and say that. It's credible.
Yeah, no kidding. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, talking about the healing project thing that you do. Um, I was really surprised to read in your bio that you are not Indigenous.
Uh, it's something that I've had to explain for a long time.
Well, given your
Um,
last name, I think most people kind of assume,
ab-
right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
ironically, I remember I moved to the Yukon in '98, and I was a school teacher at an Indigenous-based school. And I remember all the kids thinking, because of my last name, that I was Indigenous. And I didn't even realize it was an Indigenous-based school. I didn't realize that my last name would be create a conversation with students about, where are you from? Who's your clan? What's your nation? Where's your community? And I'm like, Ireland. My parents are from Ireland. I'm
Yeah.
Canadian, until I
Yeah.
learned about, and I've been here 26 years, but in
Mm.
my, as far as I somehow, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm just trying to understand. I've stopped trying to understand it other than, that's not I changed when I got married the first time, in my early 20s, I changed my last name, and I hadn't played music yet, too.
Mm.
Tentrees, which is from my grandmother. And I kept it, and then I started playing music. I didn't realize that, your stage name, you should have a stage name,
Right.
or, that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't know. I didn't grow up in the music business, so I had no idea. I just was like, my name's Gordie Tentrees. I changed it 5 years ago when I got married, and now I'm on stage. I didn't think about it then.
Right.
Explaining it since has been, I've grown to understand it, because of the community that I live in, up here in the north, where nearly half the population is Indigenous. My two younger kids are Indigenous. Um, and so I work as part of an Indigenous healing team as a non-Indigenous member. So somehow I've gravitated to that world, naturally and organically. It started actually in my early 20s. I had some trauma that I was dealing with and met some healers that did some energy work, Anishinaabe healers, and they really pointed me in the direction that there's another form of doing things, and there's something out there that isn't come from a man of the cloth or the church. And it's the creator, and that's okay to have someone else to lean on. And when I got introduced to that world in my early 20s, I've kind of naturally been pulled in that direction, because it's very holistic, and it's, based upon, the earth and animals. And I think about all these teachings, that I've been privy to learn living here in the Yukon. And so it naturally just fell into that world, and I'm
Mm.
really grateful to be a part of it. Um,
And were you welcomed? I mean, or did people kind of go, "Oh, wait a minute, your name, but we thought you were," and I mean, I could see how some people would think you were
A
kind of trying to
pretender.
put one over or something. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
And before people started pretending they were Indigenous, which we have that too, right? We have
yeah,
people, and
yeah,
it doesn't
which
help
is
me.
sweet.
None
Yeah.
of it helps me. Having this name has
You didn't
not.
get the Buffy effect off of it or anything, no?
No, having this name has not been a privilege. It has
Uh,
not been something that's opened doors for me. In
uh-huh.
fact, probably closed them. But I've just stuck with it. It was something I decided as a young person when I married my first wife. We both had last names that were very boring, and we didn't like them. And then I thought, let's take honor my grandmother, who to me was a big part. And it's from Gaelic. It's Gaelic, actually. It
Hmm.
means from the grove. I'd always hoped it meant, when I started to find, my background, and a lot of indigenous communities, and northerners live here, they're aware of where their family comes. When you meet someone, they'll tell you, my grandmother's from here, this is her last name, and this is her grandparents, as soon as you meet them, so that you can identify that where they're from and who they are, and you might be related to them,
Right.
right? Especially if you bring one home that you're interested in dating, to grandma, which is often a
Yeah.
common thing that happens here in the north. And grandma will say, "Oh, he looks pretty cute, but tell me his name and who his parents are." And they'll go do 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 do, and they'll find the lineage and go, "Sorry, you just have
Yeah.
to be friends with this one."
He's your cousin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then I had to kind of walk that, or, understand where I'm from. It made me trying to understand, where am I from and who are my people. And so tracing that's been interesting. But I find working as part of this healing team, I grew up in a home where it was very broken, and spent some time in foster care as a kid, and grew up in very poor, living on social assistance, single mom, 4 kids. I was the oldest of 4 kids. So besides, having a desire to help people, because of that, which, we all created from someplace, I had a desire to want to help people because of all the people that helped me through my journey. Um, I realized that, that if you are vulnerable and authentic, even if you are white or your last
Mhm.
name might trigger some questions, that'll come across at the end of the day. If you have good intentions, pure
Right.
intentions, and you're being authentic, people will see that. And I don't know how else to be other than real, and raw. And I'm not really, that's really what I'm made up of to begin with.
Right. What you see is what you get. Yeah.
Exactly. So when
Yeah.
I started writing songs with, other people, that had gone through, some of the things I've gone through, nobody cut my hair and took my language away and, created genocide in my, family or my country, in my clan, community, and First Nation. But besides that, growing up, in a broken home and having a lot of the issues that I've had to overcome, and all the tools I've learned along the way really helped me to navigate a lot of the conversations with people who are coming
Mm.
from areas of the same kind of areas and put them into songs.
Mm.
And having no, experience as far as being a healing songwriter, and I know there's other people that do this, I leaned on, a mentor, a friend of mine, Mary Gaucher, from the
Mm.
beginning. And I said, I don't, do you have a template for this? I've got myself into this situation. And I'm kind of overwhelmed by it and I feel honored, but I want to honor it properly. And she was very gracious and said, you just do you.
Right.
Don't do you. You don't you if you don't do and try to be anything else, you're going to be fine. And, in a sense, and led
Yeah.
me to having this experience. But I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed opening into that world, and because, my 2 younger kids are Indigenous, my wife and are, bridging the gap and building capacity
Hmm.
for the chain that's broken in their family between, their grandparents and them, between their birth parents, and trying to keep the ceremony and culture, alive, and just introduce them to it, and, surrounding themselves with people they can have access to, and bridgers. We're basically, building capacity and bridging, and, I hope it works out for them, and we've done
Yeah.
our part.
Yeah, well, you're obviously doing everything you should be doing. The other thing that sort of struck me from your background is you were a boxer, and you've talked about how the discipline inherent in that was sort of transferable to music in terms of, learning to throw a punch, learning to play guitar. It's just sitting and spending the hours. Are there other qualities that can make that bridge? Because I could also see how it would help in terms of having to sort of stand up in front of a crowd and perform to some degree, and not be nervous, or to work with your fear and channel it into something else. Are there other sort of skills that you learned as a boxer or in sports that are applicable in music, do you think?
And many, there's 3 that come to mind. You just nailed some of them.
Hmm.
Getting in front of an audience was never a fear. I happily get in front of anyone. You get in front of a ring with, hundreds of people around you screaming and yelling all kinds of things they'd like you to do or the other person to do to you, and then you learn to block all that out and slow things down, so the only thing that's happening is what you're doing. That skill is something that, I'm grateful that I had when I stepped on stage in front of an audience that would be intimidating, and my band would be like, "Oh my god, there's a lot of people out there," or,
Right.
"Geez, this is serious," and I'm like,
But I
"You
guess nobody's going to punch you at a bad gig, right?
guys got this." I would tell them, "You guys," they look at me like, "You're not worried about this?" I'm like, "I can't, no, not at all. Get me out there. Keep me out there
Yeah.
for 2 days."
Yeah.
So that
And
was
if
the
somebody
first.
does get on stage and try and punch you, you could probably deal with it.
You get a little less nervous about confrontation at the end of the
Yes.
night with promoters, who would be
Yeah.
like, when you have conversations about money or ticket sales or issues,
Right.
whatever, you'd be like, okay, I'll be okay if this just goes sideways. But the
Right.
second part of this, it would be, the, ability to practice and
Hmm.
learn and break things down. And that was the second part of this that I really enjoy being able to do is, being able to take something and going, okay, finger picking, I have to learn how to start with my thumb over and over again and get that to be an independent thing. If I do it for 10,000 hours, it'll, like I did through a combination in front of a mirror, and move my feet or skip rope, then I'll be able to do this. I
Right.
just have to do it for 10,000 hours. So most people would go, that's kind of cool and leave it. Or I think I would have been just a campfire guitar player,
Right.
3 chords, cowboy chords around a campfire, had I not known that, I just have to do it for 10,000 hours. That's not a big deal. I've done that my whole life. Just keep going.
Right.
So for me, and also the third part of this is the travel. I remember sleeping in Super 8 and Motel 6s with 10 guys in 2 rooms when I was fighting in New York State and Michigan and Ontario and Quebec, traveling around and bunking down with strangers in hotel rooms and eating bad food, and it prepared me for the road.
Right.
Unbelievable, and the endurance of having 3 fights in 3 days at a tournament. So all these things, they really, I
Yeah.
couldn't have asked for a better, I think some musicians should just go do that first,
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
Well, and then after three fights in 3 days, 3 gigs in one day is nothing,
exactly.
right? That's a treat.
Yeah, it's like, even the gigs now, I'm like, I get asked often, how do you get up for it? And this looks like, are you sure I'm like, every time. It always feels
Uh-huh.
good when it's over, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and it seems you've kept that sense of you haven't you don't take it for granted, you know?
No, no, I shouldn't be allowed to do this. To be honest, Daryl,
Mhm.
it's ridiculous that I've gotten away with it for this long, and I'm just learning how to tune my guitar. It's incredible. And
Well,
I'm
you've perpetrated a good scam for a long time, sir. I
Yeah,
congratulate
so
you on
I'm
it.
just going with it. And honestly, my brain works like I'm already on to the next project, the next thing I want to learn.
Uh-huh.
And
Well, let's talk about that. What is the next project? What is the next thing for
well,
you?
I always had this idea of making an acoustic blues, country blues record,
Hmm.
kind of a front porch in the vein of John Hyatt and John Hammond, who are 2 guys whose music I've always admired, and I'm thinking about that. So I'm going to start. I've got some songs that I'm working on, songs that I've kind of always kept for that kind of project. So actually, this September, I'm going to go in the studio for a couple of days and start working on some of those songs out in Ontario, with a couple of guys that I admire, that I always wanted to work with, and we don't know each other, and so I'm just starting to send them songs now, and we're gonna show up, and the same thing's gonna happen. And
Okay.
I love that idea of like that's how we're gonna meet each other, is this way. We're gonna do it this way. So I'm pretty excited about it, and that gets my blood going. Is understanding that you can do that and get me, even the idea and creating it and talking about it and then putting it in motion is maybe kind of go, all right, time to write the songs. And so
Oh, no, you just got to do
it's
that.
this little thing I got to do, but I've had all the songs. They've just
Right.
been sitting. And
Right.
so now I'm just letting them all come out and working them out and thinking
Is
about
that
how.
typical for you? Do you have like a lot of kind of, half-written songs and bits and pieces and things floating around in the ether and then when you need some, you kind of pull all the pieces together?
There's that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've learned even more and more and more. I've constantly, because of, I'm a dad and I've got a family and another job. And I have to really recognize when those things come out as far as
Mhm.
phrases and lyrics or ideas. I take notes, sing into my phone, write them down, scraps of stuff, think of riffs and licks and all those things, chord progressions and keys and hear melodies and even hum them. I've started to become better at catching melodies and knowing how to play them on my instruments, which is something I wasn't always good at because I wasn't a musician. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm learning this ass backwards. Most people learn how to play music when they're 12 on the piano, and
Right.
I did not know, didn't do that, so I missed those things. So I've enjoyed the journey of becoming a musician, which never ends, and I'm looking forward to the next 25 years of it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that sounds like a perfect place to let you go and get on with your day. Thanks so much for this album, and thanks so much for your time today. And I hope we get to see you sometime back here in Winnipeg soon.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you.
My pleasure. All right. Take care. See you around. Bye.
See you. Bye.